Oh, this is interesting. Oh, excellent connection. Okay, for a minute there, YouTube was telling me I had no data, and no data is not a good thing when you're trying to live stream. Quite a bit to do today, and a fair amount I have already done. So, what are we going to do this evening? Well, we are going to making my list and checking it twice, so I guess in that sense I'm just like Santa Claus. So we're going to do a little review on this shot, the shot requirements. We're going to do a little background painting because there's a pretty serious background that's required for this shot. And then we're going to look at the musical score situation, not necessarily in that order. In fact, I'm thinking that number one will be a review of the shot, which kind of dovetails into the question of the musical score, and number three, the background. Now this is, when I say the musical score, this is kind of important because what I'm putting together here is in fact the intro to the show. It is in fact the first thing people are going to experience. So in my last live stream, I was doing a lot of the drawing and animation on this shot and kind of broke it into pieces from the standpoint of saying, hey, let's just only draw what we need to draw so that we can sort of come into probably Tahoma and make it all work together. So hence you see little things like Asher's eye here, and that's because the only thing that changes is his eye in that little bit right there. So we've got to do the finishing up on the young Melchizedek, mainly meaning shadows. Okay, so we got to get him polished up a bit. We then need to take each of the individual pieces, and I'm thinking we'll again cut and paste them into Tahoma. We also need to deal with this background painting, which will probably get some things rearranged a bit. I've got it broken into layers pretty well so that it'll be pretty easy, I think, to turn this into an appropriate looking sky, which it's not even close. It's basically just, you know, about as simple as it gets at this point. And then again, as I said, let's look at the musical score situation. So what do I mean by that? Well, we're going to hear a musical texture that's going to actually fade up from black, and what we will see will be the background painting. So again, we're probably going to have to alter the scale on some of this stuff, maybe even actually enlarge this painting quite a lot, because I think what's going to happen is we're going to want a pretty wide shot. You know, I'm even thinking for effect, now that I'm kind of thinking out loud here about it, it might be interesting to actually close up the initial image with a cinescope frame ratio, so it would look letterboxed initially. And so, yeah, you're probably going to want this to be quite a bit wider, and the building to be quite small. We're going to want to do smoke coming out of the chimney because that happens in about 5 to 10 seconds. It happens in a very short period of time. We don't have a lot of time to waste on the show intro. So we fade up from black. We see the building with the smoke coming out, probably the clouds moving in the background as well. And then it's going to be like, shoo. Let me see if I actually line it up with that. What it's going to actually do is go shoo, to black, and you'll hear Asher say, "My name is Asher," and then it'll fade up, and we'll see this where he's meditating. We hear the voiceover, and then when it mentions Melchizedek, we'll cut to Melchizedek. Probably, oh, I would say, let me see, actual size. That's actual size. That's probably not too bad. He could be centered in the frame, and so we just kind of see him for the first time, and then all of a sudden he looks back at Asher and does his little Melchizedek thing. So, okay, so at that point, I suppose we would probably come back to Asher and show the kind of disapproving look in his eye. And by that time, I would expect we're probably dissolving into the second half of the minute, which of course is going to be the montage of cuts from the show that comprise the introductory segment, the credit roll, and all the rest. Okay, so that's what we've got to do. Again, it's kind of a lot more complicated than your usual shot because in truth, it's really two shots in one. You know, it's the wide shot that's going to dissolve into the close shot. So if the feel of what's going on with this isn't completely clear, it probably will be when I review the musical thing. Now, the other thing about this that's really unusual is that we're getting into music because, again, it's the intro segment. This is a really, really important little sequence here, right? And so I'm coordinating what I'm thinking and doing from an animation standpoint with what I'm doing with the sound as well. So everything's a little more tightly coupled here. So, having said that, what am I talking about with the music? Well, there's two ways we can go about looking at this. One would be to just look at it from a high level view and kind of hear what we're talking about, and then maybe I could take a moment or two and go through and kind of show what's actually going on. So if you're out there going, what the heck is he talking about? And by the way, because the animation isn't done yet, I wasn't able to score to the animation, which would probably be a little bit easier. But okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to play this, and just so you know, when I'm live streaming, OBS turns down the system audio, so it's actually kind of hard for me to hear what you're hearing here. But okay, so this is the introductory sequence. Let me just play this. When it gets into the back half where the music picks up and you're going to have the montage of all the characters and everything, you only have a couple bars, and then it goes into just this simple string thing where I was sort of blocking in the idea. Okay, so this is what we have. I'm pretty happy with the front half. So here's what we have in the front half.
My name is Asher. They call me a wise or holy man. I don't know about all that. The wisest thing I ever did was take in a young boy and raise him as my own. That young man turned out to be far more important than I could ever have guessed. His name was Melchizedek.
And on it goes. So now if you heard that, now you understand what I'm talking about. So when we hear this, we see the wide shot.
My name...
And by the time we get to my name is Asher, we pretty much need to be inside the building, and he's coming up from black. So how much time do we have to do that? This is not in time. This is in bars. So let's look at measures, beats, minutes, seconds. This is probably about 8 seconds, if that. Yeah. Well, actually 5:30. So basically, you've got to come up from black, show the building, and then go into it. It's pretty rapid. Okay, so I'm going to play this one more time, and then, like I said, I'll take a few minutes to kind of look at what we're actually hearing here. That's going to be coordinating with these visuals and also with this wide shot, which I'm going to work on the background painting here in just a bit. Okay, so one more time.
My name is Asher. They call me a wise or holy man. I don't know about all that. The wisest thing I ever did was take in a young boy and raise him as my own. That young man turned out to be far more important than I could ever have guessed. His name was Melchizedek.
Okay, so I'm pretty happy with the way that came out. Frankly, let's take Asher out, and also let's take out the Proteus. And so I kind of started out with this because in the oboe, which that's not actually an oboe, that's actually an English horn. I thought it had a little bit more of the ethnic sound I wanted. And, you know, frankly, there's a lot you could say about the music because it's a very iterative process where and so there were quite a lot of musical bits that were in there that were then taken back out in order to make room. So what are the highlights? I mean, the highlights are obviously this initial figure, which is supposed to be, you know, if you remember in Aladdin, you hear a lot of that kind of thing. It's sort of the snake charmer playing to the basket kind of thing. Everything's kind of circulating around a minor chord if you're a musical person, so it's not particularly complicated music. The French horn gives it some a fairly subtle sense of majesty, maybe, or you know, there's something sweet about French horns. In the percussion, this transition into, just to get us in, I thought, you know, let's put a gong in there. So we're sort of, one of the things about the show is it's sort of eclectic. We're taking in all the different cultures. So if you actually add this, if you can believe it, this is actually, you guys will get a kick out of this. This is actually just my voice going, and then like that into the microphone. Okay, so if we turn the effects off, but when you turn the effects on, yeah, I'm echoing Maria's question. How you doing, Darren? Is everything, you pretty much escaping the nasty side effects and whatnot? Okay, so then we get into it. Probably looking at what the strings are doing is probably kind of useful. It's all about the bass fiddles really giving it that really low rumble. That key change there, I thought when he mentions Mel, it kind of lifts a little bit, and then there's a chord change, but it's just one key change, and then so this is, I just blocked this in so I know what I was going to do, basically. If we play it out, some of it's played pretty badly because I'm not that great of a player, actually. And there's some stupid notes in there for sure, but yeah, that part doesn't work at all. And then it's going to be like a John Williams ending. That's like the quintessential John Williams thing. Now, overall, what I'm looking for in the music is a style a little bit more in keeping with what Alan Menken might do in the classic 90s Disney films, because he's really good at keeping his music on the sparse side, so it doesn't get too thick and dense. Okay, probably the big coup in terms of the transitions was this thing. I have this one sample that does this. I thought, oh my gosh, you just listen to what that does.
His name was Melchizedek.
It just knocks, kind of knocks your head off. I love that. Makes me giggle. So, anyway, so yeah, that's probably all I need to say about the music. Now, the Proteus, basically when my beautiful wife Valerie looked at it and listened to it, she wasn't hearing enough of the ethnic component. And interestingly enough, when I put this part in, which is very simple, it led me to then take 2 or 3 instruments back out, and the whole thing felt and sounded much better. So pretty simple, right? But when you put it in there, here I'll show you a little bit without and with it.
My name is Asher.
And let's take Asher
They
out
call
too.
me a...
So it's a really nice backdrop, actually. You put that sample in there. It's got that. I don't know. I don't even know what it is. A shamisen or something. I don't know what that instrument is called. The sample patch is called. I think it's called Indian or something. East Indian. So you know what they use. That's a really, really old sample library. So my problem is,
My name is...
once the music starts coming together, I wind up wasting a lot of time because I just want to sit here and listen to it because it sounds so cool, you know. So anyway, and then of course the voiceover is that's me.
My
playing
name
Asher.
is Asher. They call me a wise or holy man. I don't know about all that. The wisest thing I ever did was take in a young boy and raise him as my own. That young man turned out to be far more important than I could ever have guessed. His name was Melchizedek.
And then I actually pushed the volume because you got the crescendo happening, so I pushed Asher's volume a little bit as it transitions into the
His
hot
name
spot.
was Melchizedek.
It was a fun scene because of all the, partly because of what it means, I suppose. Being the intro to the show is a big deal. And you know what? Ultimately, you know, the music could get scrapped. We might wind up deciding, hey, we want to do something a little different. No big deal. I mean, I want to be the pragmatic producer here who says, hey, whatever's working, that's what we want to do. So, all right, Krita, which unfortunately crashed a little while ago. We need to go ahead and get some of this stuff in here. So, I don't know why their building has like multiple doorways all around it, but since I drew it that way once, I'm gonna keep drawing it that way. Over here, I would say, why don't we go into erase mode and kind of just chop a little. Will that work? I don't know if that'll work. Chisel, yeah, just chisel a little piece out of that. I don't know, that doesn't really work. I think I'm gonna skip that one. Okay, so let's deal with shading. We're obviously going to be backlit because of the moon, so probably what we should do is get some of the basic texture in there. It gives it some dimensionality, and then we'll maybe do some color correction to sort of tighten up the way things look. But what I'm doing is I'm going to scribble a bit of a slightly lighter tone in here, so it gives it a, oh, I don't know, sort of that stucco Adobe kind of thing. Varia says, do you think the intro to the show is a bit too cliche? Well, first of all, if I thought it was too cliche, obviously I wouldn't have done it. Okay. Is it cliche? You're asking a fair question. How do we dance between being quote unquote say original versus you know, satisfying people's basic expectations? This is not a revolutionary show in terms of the genre. You know, for the most part, I would say you want to adhere to expectations. Now, an important question, though, for you, Varia, is what exactly and precisely do you mean by cliche? I mean, do you mean the whole shot and the way it's structured? Are you talking about the music? Are you talking about the content of the scene? That's all kind of important to what you might mean by cliched. So you can expound on that question if you would. But while and I don't have any strong opinions about. There's nothing that occurred to me that I wanted to do differently than what I did. So, but there's always another idea. Valerie suggesting a little bit more ethnic instrumentation absolutely was the right idea. So, what do I care? I just want to make the best show possible. So, I think I might have to lose this hoodie. It feels a little hot. Hang on. Any number of properties that cartoons or shows or whatever, it's not as if the idea that the main character is more important than anyone could ever have guessed. Yeah, that's not exactly a new idea. I will certainly grant you that. My initial response to whether that's a problem would be, I don't care, because people, we're trying, it's like poetry, Varia. It's like poetry. The thing, I'm not into poetry. I don't particularly enjoy poetry, but the thing I can appreciate about poetry, which is similar to songwriting, which I've done lots of, is that there's a real art to packing as much information and meaning into as little space as possible. That's really what poetry, to me, is kind of about, is about how do you, as concisely as possible, use the language to say what you're trying to say. And there's a real skill to that. And so here you have 30 seconds, just to give you my mindset here. Right, and I appreciate that you think it's cool. The number one reaction that I would want a person to have when they see this scene that I'm working on right now is, wow. That's what I want people to say. I want them to go, whoa, looks good, sounds good, feels good. I'm not saying I've achieved that or am always going to achieve that, but that's my objective. This speaks back to why it does kind of make sense to crowdfund the show. And I take Darren's input from the other day to heart, which is that the idea that this is all being done by one guy is kind of a cool factor. At the end of the day, most of the people who will ever watch it, they don't care about that. That is completely irrelevant. But from the standpoint of sort of building a fan base for the project and wanting to have, I want people to root for me, I want people to root for me and want me to succeed just because it's like, well, that's cool. Not just everybody in my neighborhood can do that, right? And to be fair, maybe I can't do what the local plumber can do. We all have our, stuff we bring to the table. But insofar as, cartoons go, yeah, I'm trying to shoot for the wow factor. And part of that is to be cognizant of what people's expectations of the introduction of a show would be, and don't really violate those expectations. You can violate them a little bit, because it's fun to be creative and do something a little different, right? There's nothing wrong with that. But for the most part, I'm just trying to put in the audience's mind, I guess to one degree, the fact that Asher is the narrator, because the first 2 minutes of the show is basically backstory, which is pretty common. If you look at a lot of your, popular quintessential animated movies, you do have a little bit of backstory. You have it like if you watch Kung Fu Panda and then you watch Beauty and the Beast. I've mentioned this before, but you notice that in both places, here's two shows that were made 20 years apart, where the main character shows up at exactly 2.5 minutes. Well, you know what? In my show, my main character shows up at exactly 2.5 minutes. Now, does that make me a copycat? Yeah, to a degree it does. But has that become something that is an expectation to where someone might start to get a little edgy and impatient if the main character hasn't shown up by 2.5 minutes? I would say probably yes. So if you're trying to do a creative work that you want to be successful, you have to dance this dance between adhering to what people kind of expect from your genre or your medium, and yet bringing an original flavor to it as well. The fact that I'm doing it all myself and do all the, do some of the voices and all the music and all that is only cool to people who are aware of what I'm doing. The things that make the show cool to the average people that'll ever see it is going to be very much different from that. They have to get on board with the characters and enjoy them and get sucked into the story. I mean, it's absolutely essential that all happen. I think I'm doing okay in that regard. So, anyway, you're making a fair question, for sure. Believe me, I've thought about this type of stuff a lot. And I temper it too by saying that by far the most successful film I ever produced was successful specifically because I simply found out what was working in that market for that genre, and I didn't copy anybody, but I emulated the characteristics of what tended to work. And it worked, as a result it sold well. So what are you going to do? I mean, that's hard to argue with. That looks pretty good. It's not too uncommon to introduce your main character a few minutes into the show. Hamlet and Romeo both show up after scene 1, right? Yeah, when I did the same thing in Healed by Grace. I had, it's a movie where you had, basically what I did was I used the first 5 minutes to just introduce key people that are going to be coming back again and again in the story. And then it finally lands on the main character, Riley. And then, of course, the music starts, and then you have the credit roll and all the rest. Kind of the same situation I'm describing here. So here, let's see. We want to put a layer behind this. And then we definitely want to save our work. All right, save. Krita annoyed me by crashing earlier when I was working on this background painting. All right, now let's get a little bit of a highlight edge in there. And maybe a pretty crisp. And just catching the moonlight, So Lear shows up pretty much mid scene 1. Well, and Maria's kind of making my point for me is that the classics of literature and film, the examples I gave obviously being animated cartoons, there's kind of a pattern that we come to expect. Now but yet no one's going to claim that Kung Fu Panda is a ripoff of Beauty and the Beast. Even though probably if you analyze it, there's probably actually some similarities. I've never thought about that, and that's just because all stories have similarities. I tell you what I'm gonna do here. I'm gonna actually add a second chimney here. Just like a lower one over here that's not gonna be running. Just because I think it looks good. So I'm going to hit Control E and bake that down. So, yep, this is the dance we dance. All right. Okay, we do need to be again cognizant of the fact that, like, initially I really have to think about this because it's such a complicated scene. You know, this building is going to probably be about that big when it shows up, and then we're going to go shoo, and this is going to happen really fast, and then it'll be black. I mean, frankly, to Varia's point, this actually has more in common with Kung Fu Panda as far as the feel of it, I would think. You know, the whole meditation dude and stuff. But anyway, so let's see here. What we're working with now is going to be this. Okay, so what we need to do, it's going to be a little, this is going to be challenging to, oops, I need to hit B key. Okay, I've got the right brush. I'm really thinking about seeing this in my head. It's kind of like a cliff face type situation. Let me go ahead and just do the big, let's do the Peter Ellen Shaw thing. Let's use the big house painter brush. Be bold with it, and as I like to say, work from the known to the unknown. Just want to get this texture in there. When I conceived this picture, what's stupid about it is I kind of was seeing the ocean down here lapping up against the cliff face. The problem is this appears in another place in the show, and it isn't the ocean. If you look over the cliff, it actually goes down, and that's the village. Now we could complicate things a lot by having the palace in the foreground or something and zoom past that, and then you see this, and then you zoom into that, and you're inside and you see Asher. I mean, you could go as far as you want with it, but we only have 30 seconds, right? So yeah, I've had a good bit of I'm speaking to Amar here, a fair amount of kind of logistics I've been having to deal with as far as just related to social media. I've been dialing in. My laptop has been running Linux Mint for a few months, and I wanted to try AV Linux. Okay, this is working. Now I'm seeing what I wanted to see. I'm seeing the shadows that are coming down around the cliff face. I like that. That looks good. I'm starting to see the cliff face appear. That's cool. But yeah, I actually put 32-bit AV Linux on my laptop, so it's dual booting. And that Linux distro is really good on the audio side. And by running 32-bit Wine, which Amar knows what Wine is, probably other people wouldn't, but it's basically how Linux deals with Windows program. Running 32-bit Wine allows Reaper to run like way better on my Linux laptop even than it does here. And I can load up my full orchestra with 300 instruments all loaded at the same time, so I can actually have full access to all the different instruments and their articulations and everything. Doesn't even hiccup. I mean, it handles it just fine. Really impressive. It uses a real-time kernel, so it's not the standard Linux kernel. So that might sound like a bunch of Greek to some of you guys, but you know, I'm always thinking about ways to dial in and or improve the system and the workflow, you know. Okay, so now I'm gonna kind of give this cliff face a little bit of roughness, which of course made the bottom of the building, which is kind of wrong, appear. So whoops, E key for erase. So I'm just gonna clean out a little bit of the garbage here. Okay, so now let's keep going with this. Make sure we're in the correct layer. I guess it's this one. Okay, so I better name this cliff face and save my work. Okay, so now what I want to do is basically get the, you know, for those of you that are, you know, here to learn, I'll try to describe as best I can what I'm thinking as I'm doing this. The idea is to recognize what the contour is in silhouette. So yeah, it's brown, but I think of it as a flat shape. So I usually want to think about the silhouette first. Okay, and now I'm going to think about value. In other words, what is the light doing? So you find that with highlights and whatnot that the range of values is usually way smaller than you think. So if I sample this color and then I just go a little bit different, this is going to show up really clear. See that? Now I want to cut across here to a somewhat less saturated color, and then I'm going to just sneak in a little bit of texture here and there. And I feel like that's, like I said, these value changes need to be really, really tiny. So I'm going to actually stick with this. So the idea is that, frankly, once you get out away from this immediate shadow that would be happening under the sort of lip of the cliff face, the only highlights you're really going to be seeing here on the rocky face, if you will, is ambient light. There's no direct light. The moon is in the background, so this is really the result of light bouncing. And it's very much about feel. What is it? What feels right? Okay, so it looks like Amar posted something. Not been able to use Linux in a while. Always was a task finding applications that perform as needed. It is. It is. I've had good luck with Linux Mint. 64-bit, the latest version, seems to install pretty well on all my machines. And I think I noted the other day that I also noticed that using app images of both Krita and Tahoma both work fine in Linux Mint, and the cut and paste between Krita and Tahoma works fine as well. So I actually like running Windows programs under Linux because the Wine subsystem, basically there's a hidden folder in your home folder. It makes it really easy to back up your Windows system, way easier than in Windows. And clone it, or if you wanted to duplicate your system on another machine, it's relatively easy to do by just duplicating the home folder. In fact, they even actually, what Wine does under Linux is, because it's not an emulator like VirtualBox or something like that, it's a I think I mentioned this the other day, they just simply re-implemented the Windows API. So your Linux apps are actually running natively. They're just having to call functions that are part of the Wine subsystem, because the Windows system functions that let you, draw windows on the screen and stuff like that are different than they are natively for Linux, right? So, but the Wine project has been in place for like 20 years. It's been around for a long time, so it's really mature. The one thing it doesn't do well, and I know it sounds insane to even suggest that this should matter, but it doesn't do well with older 16-bit Windows programs. And the only reason I know that is that, believe it or not, the database program that I use with my business, I started using, believe it or not, in 1992. And I actually run my contact manager on a VirtualBox, running Windows XP. Whatever works, Okay, so let's jump over here to some greenery. And this is not a cliff face in the sense of a craggy, there is no water below, so there would be a bit of perhaps vegetation sneaking in here, right? So Okay, I'm gonna go to normal size so I can make sure that I'm getting a level of detail that's gonna be okay here. Okay, I don't know if it would help if you'd want to do something. Oh, I'm sorry, Darren. I missed your comment up there. We create a website, social media accounts with. Well, that's yeah. I mean, I didn't say it, but that's one thing I've been doing now. Looking at the social landscape, I kind of made the command decision. I've already got a Pinterest account. For me, Instagram's useless because really the practical application of Instagram is to be taking pictures from your device and, you know, snapping them to your wall or whatever they call it in Instagram language. But so for me, my decision is I am updating the BlendedPlanet website to refocus on the idea that, you know, I'm kind of turning my direction towards cartoons. Sorry about that, guys. Eating my olive. But basically, Facebook, the Blended Planet page on Facebook, which has been around for a long time because of the movies. Facebook, Pinterest, YouTube. What are they? Really, I mean, honestly, YouTube, Facebook. I'm drawing a blank here for some stupid reason. Must be age. What the, I don't want to distract from working on this cartoon too much. A little bit's okay to turn into social media guy. I just don't want to do that. It's just not worth it to me, I don't think. And plus, to be fair, my son has his business has taken off, and he's doing really, really nice website development, primarily with Wix as his platform of choice, kind of surprisingly, but he's doing amazing looking sites with it. And he's also got clients that he's doing, you know, Facebook ad campaigns and whatnot for. So he's definitely looking at the social media advertising space as it relates to his client requirements. And so I may just lean on him when the time comes to deal with some of that stuff. So Amar says Facebook has the highest value for him. So what are you doing on Facebook? I assume that means you've done some Facebook ads or something. Oh, and by the way, obviously Indiegogo, it's not 100% that I'm gonna go that route, but I think I am. I think I'm gonna do the Indiegogo thing just because it gives you you can kind of ride the fence between the GoFundMe idea of whatever turns out you get from crowdfunding. It can be ongoing for one thing. So that means for me that's a win because it can unfold organically a little more and you know, kind of grow on its own to a degree. You know, with Kickstarter, at least everything I've ever seen or heard, you know, you really need to just like stop your life and be all about promote your Kickstarter for like 60 days. And I'm not so sure that I'm totally up for that. Okay, so now up here, let's sample this and then say using the same value, let's just jump over to the green. So we're keeping pretty much the same value and giving this a little bit of greenery. Yeah, it looks okay. And Instagram. Yeah, like I said, I kind of looked at Instagram and said, I think probably a waste of time. Oh, and obviously Twitter. Duh. I mean, BlendedPlanet on Twitter. That's me. And so yeah, Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest is really for graphics. I don't even think it's necessarily that useful, but YouTube, Facebook, that's pretty much the group of places. And that means I don't have to necessarily change what I'm doing too much. I do expect though, for you guys, I will say that I would expect probably more curated content here on my channel for a while, and probably less live streaming. I'm probably going to cut the live streaming down to about twice a week or something, just because I'm a bit overwhelmed actually at the moment with the things I feel like I need to do organizationally, that I don't want to stop making good forward progress on the show itself, right? So, you know, this is the dance I'm dancing at the moment, and not a big deal, but it's just something I've been giving a lot of thought to. Now, what I want to do here is put these highlights and then basically stop, so that like you get the sense that the building would be, you know, casting a shadow over that lip of the cliff face. So that's what I'm thinking. Twitter's a bit toxic and seemed to be more rambling than anything. You know, for a lot of people, yeah, I haven't had that experience with Twitter. To me, Twitter is what it is. I haven't posted a lot of tweets, and frankly don't have very many subscribers or subscriptions. I don't do it. Like, I don't spend any time at all. I don't have it on any of my devices. I don't have actually any social media on any of my devices, nor would I want to. So, to me, Twitter is what it is. I mean, it's still a big, you know, a lot of people use it. So, there it is, you know. It's not a big deal to tweet whatever you're up to, I suppose. You know, more like what it was intended to be in the first place, which is, that's what people did, you know. They, hey, I'm at Walmart shopping or whatever. A little bit goofy, but when it was new, it was a very cool thing. Yeah, it feels pretty good. That is my plan once I get the content, so that the cartoon or that company is its own entity. Well, that's pretty easy to do, Amar. You can go to your Secretary of State's website and form your corporation in about 5 minutes. So, no big deal. In Indiana, it costs about $25 to form a corporation. It's actually a super good idea if your media activities are starting to make some money. I don't want to get into a lot of it here, but there's some definite reasons why. If you're essentially in business for yourself and you don't incorporate, you're gonna get zapped at tax time compared to somebody who is incorporated. So if people beg me, I'll explain why that is, but otherwise I'll just say you're at a great advantage business-wise to be incorporated, and you're highly likely, especially if you have a good year business-wise, you're highly likely to get zapped on your taxes if you're not incorporated, because sole proprietors and partnerships are at a distinct disadvantage. Building down, actually, because I kind of like the scale of this, but this is too big at the outset. So let's save our work. All right, Amar, dude, you are blowing up the chat, brother. You are blowing up the chat, blowing. All right. Well, I've spent a lot of time to see what's the best route to get eyes on what you're promoting. I don't know, a lot of people don't like Facebook operations. The sky is completely wrong as well. The sky needs to actually have blue in it, obviously a gray steely blue, kind of like this color over here actually, and then it needs to get lighter as it gets towards the ground. That's your atmospheric perspective. So let's take the image And let's scale the image to a new size. Yes, yes, that'll be wonderful. Let's look at it in pixels and see what we have. Yeah, I'm gonna go big or go home, right? So, boop. Let's scale it up. We'll see if this causes more blow-ups with Krita. Who knows? Okay, so I hit the N key. There's actual size. We are going to see that, but we're going to see it so fast that you're not really going to see it. So, for that reason, I would say we want to take this and this. We want to bake that down to there, and then hit the N key. And we're going to have to add a little bit of detail to the grass, and etc. Let's do this. Let's hit the tab so we can actually see this. Okay, this is not the actual size. This will be the size on screen-ish. So that's pretty much what we're dealing with. Okay, let's leave it that way for the moment. Take the building, which we will rename BLDG, which everyone knows is the official abbreviation for building, and let's shrink the building down. Probably feels about right there. So I'm hitting the shift key so I can pop that down below the horizon. And frankly, you know what? I think I'm gonna make it a little wider as well, just because I can. It's my show and I'm allowed to. Maybe just a tiny bit smaller. Okay, so when we come into the shot, we'll see something like this, and then we'll go pretty much. Not exactly that, but okay, so if we crop this to HD, so to speak, meaning let's say this is going to be our shot. Let's say there. Okay, you see the problem? Yeah. The moon is out of the shot. Now you could say, whoa, why don't we pan down? You could do that, but we're not going to. We're going to take the moon and get it in the shot. So something more like that, and probably that's probably feeling about right to me. Yeah, we'll go with that. Alright, file, save. Now, so much to do, so much to do. Amar has done that in the past for other businesses. I assume he's talking about incorporating. I assume that's what he means. Cliff face, building back. Let's do some clouds, just to get the vibe of the clouds. So hitting the B key, let's just go to 50% opacity and pull up our wonderful cloud brush because it's quite useful. Okay, I want it even bigger. I want bulbous clouds. You're saying, whoa, Dave, they're so bright. They're so obnoxious. Okay, you're correct. That's okay, though. We're going to turn the opacity of it down, but I didn't notice that this got screwed up when I selected my brush. So. And I think I'm probably going to stretch these guys wide. They're a little too cumulus for my taste. Yeah, it's a nice cloud brush. It's pretty quick and easy and effective, so why not use it, right? Okay, hold on. Let's undo that one. Let's actually take the big cumulus clouds like that. Okay, and just because I don't really know what I'm gonna need, I think I'm gonna do multiple layers of clouds. Now what we could do, let's just try this because it's fun. Let's just flip these around, shrink them down, and make them more transparent like that. Okay, file, Save. Okay, so I'm thinking the clouds will probably be animated a little bit, but because I'm being a bit conservative on my painting, I am going to put the sky tonality in a different layer for the moment. Okay, B key. Do we want this brush, this cloud brush? Why not? Let's use the cloud brush. Let's just do that. It kind of helps sell the texture, I suppose. So and then maybe we'll blur it a bit and see what that feels like. Okay, I'm not liking the hue, but of course that's what curves are for. Yep. Okay, so now what we're going to do is let's just grab our, oh brother, I guess because, okay, when I was silly and fiddling around with Krita versions, I sort of shot myself in the foot. So let's go here, pull up our brush presets, which you guys don't get to see, and I'm looking for my tried and true Q-tip blur. Ah, here we go. The Q-tip blur brush, which I'm going to assign to the tag. I think it's Dave. I don't know if it's Dave or my favorites, but looks like it's Dave. Okay, good. All right, so now what we're going to do is make that big and just... Oh, I see. Krita's just a little bit slow on the draw. Slow on the draw. It's going to take it a minute to process that stroke because that's a pretty high intensity brush there, baby. Okay, Amar says, so when you think you have enough content to create a trailer or use a promotional cartoon, Amar, I have... Dude, you haven't been watching very close, man. I have the entire first episode done, and I've got 8 minutes of the second episode done. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff that could be used in a trailer. Yeah, definitely. So that is the plan. That's the plan, man. Okay. Okay, yeah, that looks okay. So let's hit the old Control M and see if pumping the contrast just a bit would be advised. Come on, come on, come on. Just looking for the right. Oh yeah, dude. Dude. Well, one thing that's missing, by the way, is how about some stars, right? Okay, so yeah, I have plenty of content for the. See, I already went through this shot, which you know. If anybody showed up late and wants me to do a short recap of the whole music thing, that would be this.
Never have guessed. His name was Melchizedek.
Blah, blah, blah. Let me know and I'll do a quick recap. But all this stuff is kind of working together. So, all right, so we want to have a background, but in front of the background, we want to have some stars. So how about some particle brushes? That would be good. Let's go over here and see what we have. Let's do this one. Okay, I'm going to make it big. Ooh, that's no good. That is no good at all. That was the wait, I see, but you still have to get to a point where you feel you have the content you need to be able to sell the cartoon. Yeah, I'm feeling relatively secure in the the aesthetic and the quality that I have is probably where it needs to be. You know. Okay, not too bad. Not really feeling the blue I want to feel, though. Not feeling the blue. I'm going to put another layer over here. Methinks in overlay mode. And let's just see what we can do with our paintbrush. That kind of helps a bit. Might be a little strong. A little strong. We'll see. Yeah, I wouldn't be talking about this stuff if I didn't feel like, you know, it was time to talk about it. So, overlay mode. Let's just kind of, yeah, that kind of works. Sounds like you're already there. I think so. I think so. I mean, there's always room for improvement. Definitely. Let's see if we bake this down. Yeah, that's what I thought. We don't want to bake that down. Okay. But what I do want to do, we're getting into Ed Tadeo territory here in terms of the having a quadzillion layers. It's not usually how I roll, but I'm willing to bend those rules just a bit in order to satisfy the needs of the current shot. Now, the clouds look kind of stupid because they're so dark and dense. So I think I'm going to go ahead and stretch these guys really wide, like that. And these guys I want to stretch wide as well. They're just not the right looking clouds for my taste. And plus I might want to animate them a little bit. So File, Save. Okay, and they're too bright as well. So let's just ease those in there. I definitely want to soften those guys up a bit. Oops, wrong layer. Wrong layer. Yeah, we want to fade those into the background a bit. Okay, Blifton says hello. A suggestion just in case you need to do a multi-plane effect. I think the sky cliff and castle or building should be separate. Yes, yeah, I agree. I am not planning on flattening this image out because yeah, there will be a multi-plane effect. What you're going to see happen is, let's see again, let me just recap this. When we come up from black, this is pretty much what we'll see. And I got to animate some smoke coming out of the chimney. So we've got there's still some color work to do here. Frankly, the lighting situation here on the grass no longer makes sense, obviously, because the building's smaller. But it's going to fade up from black, and like when you hear this, by the time you get to here, 5 seconds later, we're zooming past this background. This background is only going to be on the screen for 5 seconds. So this is so you're going to hear this.
My name is Asher.
By now we're
They
in the
call me
building.
a wise or holy man. I don't know about all
So
that.
now we're seeing
the
this.
wisest thing I ever did was take in
And
a
then we're
young
gonna
boy
probably dissolve
and
to
raise
this.
him as my own.
Which I got
That young man turned out to be far more important than I
So-
could ever have guessed. His
And
name
then-
was Melchizedek.
And so now we're into taking just clips from the show, from the first 2 episodes, and cobbling them together into a montage. And then, of course, credits and all the rest. So that's pretty much what we got to do. That's pretty much it. Okay, I'm thinking what I'm going to do here is I'm going to craft, let's call this distant clouds. Okay, I'm going to craft a blur effect here that's going to be, let's do Gaussian blur so we can decouple the horizontal from the vertical. Okay, yeah, that's way better. Way better. Okay, and I'm going to hit Control F to do it twice and see what happens. do these as well. And after a couple times, I like that better. I think that style of cloud kind of fits the vibe a little more. Now, having done that, actually, makes me feel like maybe, not to like spend forever on the clouds here, but maybe we could fatten them up just a skosh. Okay, Amar likes music. Hey, thanks, man. I appreciate that. I scored that today, and I like it too. I'm pretty happy with how it's turning out. So, fortunately, my lovely Valerie gave me some good feedback, encouraged me to introduce some more ethnic instruments into the mix instead of being more, you know, fixated on a traditional orchestra, let's say. Okay, thanks. You do all the music in Reaper with the MIDI keyboard or just beats? Okay, when Amar says beats, he means loops. He means samples. And the answer is, yeah, I've never used a loop or a beat in my life. So, it's all this. It's all me playing the notes on a keyboard. It is definitely not taking anything out of a library and just layering a bunch of loops together. You feeling a vibe here? You feeling a vibe? Yeah, I wouldn't be into that too much. No, I don't think so. Okay. Yeah, I don't do the loop thing. Loops and beats. Now I've known some guys over the years who were into either the hip hop or the rap kind of thing. Now this is kind of interesting. I have to say, that is kind of more interesting than I expected. Yes, I like that. I like these aliens. Yes. Yeah, that's a quote from Beast Wars. Okay, yes. I have to say, I like the stark dark. I like the stark dark better, baby. We are going to go with that. I just think it feels more correctamundo. Okay, let's deal with, yes. We need to deal with our cliff face since I've had a bit of a stupid attack, and since I shrunk the doggone building down, now I have vegetation that is, well, let us say, lacking. Mainly because it is kind of violating the lighting a bit. So I dabbled in various sound editing programs. Yeah, who hasn't? I mean, come on. I thought about getting a keyboard to make it easier to do the soundtracks. Yeah, you can get a keyboard pretty readily. Actually, what I did today was, in fact, done using a little 2-octave M-Audio keyboard. Now, it's not really my preference. My, you know, I like my fully weighted piano keyboard for sure, but, you know, I'm sitting here at the computer and I've got the idea in my head, and it's like I want to just get it down, so, you know, I just pull out the little MIDI controller and start plunking. So, that's what I do. That's what I do, people. Gotta do it. Not bad, not bad. It's looking alright. I'm feeling like I want a little bit more. Actually, I kind of feel like what I want to do is chew some of this back out. Okay, that's going to cause maybe a little bit of a problem, though, isn't it? Alright, so the question is, does it matter? Is that, like, important for my... I don't think so. I'm going to... In fact, what I probably should do, if I really want to play it safe, you know, I probably should use my handy-dandy vegetation brush to sell this texture a little bit better. Just to dial it in a bit. Okay, Maria says, I actually have a keyboard. My sister and brother-in-law bought one for me so I could teach myself piano. Yeah. Yep. I love the music thing. I've been doing it for a lot of years. A lot of years. I can't say I've always been good at it. I mean, honestly, the last film I scored was the first one I ever did that I felt like I really did a quite good job. Now, I will say that the songs on Healed by Grace 1, I think were pretty good. A lot of them were good tunes. But scoring's much harder. I mean, like, way harder. I can write a song. If you give me a topic and say, okay, I want XYZ type of song and I want it in XYZ genre, truthfully, I could probably come back in an hour with a pretty good song. You know, you'd be surprised. I've always been able to write songs very easily. So, and again, if you don't believe me, just go watch my movie. And if you think the songs suck, you're welcome to your opinion for sure. They're not everybody's cup of tea, that's for sure. But yeah, I actually changed my major. I was going to be an art major in college, and for the first term, I was an art major, and then I shifted my major to telecommunications so I could get in the recording studio and do the music thing. In hindsight, probably wasn't a great idea, actually. In hindsight, I would have gotten a lot more out of an art education, truthfully. But, geez, live and learn. I could count on one hand the number of people that I know that where their college education actually made a difference. Now, people who are in the sciences, obviously, it's a big deal. You got to learn the lexicon of your field. Okay, that feels pretty good, I would say. Let's add a couple smackerings of I'm trying to become a sound engineer, but sometimes you have to do what you have to do. Well, yeah, having a little MIDI keyboard can be a help. You can pick them up anywhere for pretty cheap nowadays. All right, okay, so let's go to this guy. No, I've joked that I got into making films so that I could score films. Well, nobody's asking me to score their picture, so I guess I'll make the movie so that I can score it. And that is largely true. That is actually largely true. It's always been the part about it that I felt I did the worst, and I think probably most people would agree. I definitely was not very good at it. But I've gotten good at it. I feel pretty confident with scoring a film now. The hardest thing is restraint, frankly. Staying out of the way, supporting and helping the emotion of the scenes without actually calling attention to itself is, dang, it's tricky. But that's what makes it fun. I mean, that's the challenge, right? If it was easy, everyone would do it. Okay, let's deal with some smoke here. There's the building. Why don't we add a layer and call it smoke? Yep, if it was easy, everyone would do it. So, here's what we have to do. We want to, probably we actually could use the cloud brush, I suppose. And we'll just kind of put it into a gray. And normally what I've done is Rock Jam. Yeah, I don't really have any recommendation for you, Amar, only because, first of all, if I was going to get a keyboard, I would not buy a new one, probably. I mean, I might, because they're so cheap nowadays, but if you're just looking for a MIDI controller, like, I wouldn't probably buy a keyboard if I just as a MIDI controller, because I might want to hear it, without having to plug it into a computer. So there is that to consider. The other thing to consider is, do you want weighted keys or not? Now, I would assume with what you're talking about, probably that doesn't matter, right? So, okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take and go Control F. Okay, that's too much, obviously. Let's do a little bit of a blur. Actually, let's not. Let's not. I think if I was going to do that, I'd want to do it on the, I would want to do it on the whole layer. So what I'm going to do is, for the first time in this scene, I'm going to hit Control Insert, and then we're just going to do the tradigital smoke, anime style smoke. It would seem that it would seem that there isn't much wind, so I'm gonna say, actually, let's go here. Let me see about a bit of liquefy my I think that would probably be okay. Now the problem we're gonna have, we can always make this semi-transparent, but okay. So here's what we're gonna do. Let me turn the opacity, this guy down a little bit. Okay, and now we're gonna raise this up, and then poof, up, and then poof. A key, up, and then poof. A key, up, and then B key, poof. So, as I always say, friends, I reserve the right to fail. I reserve the right to have this suck and not look that good. But guess what? It looks pretty good. Now it looks a little stiff. It doesn't look like something you do in Blender with a particle system. It's not supposed to. It's a cartoon. It's a 2D animated cartoon. So we want it to look like a 2D animated cartoon. Biggest thing about this is, you know, can you loop it? I mean, it'd be nice if you could, just because it would make the job a little easier. And one thing you can do is add a transform mask to the animated layer that causes it to dissipate. So I'll show you how to do that here in just a little bit. It's quite a useful technique. Quite a useful technique, I say. Boom. A key. Okay, now remember, we've already established that what we're seeing right now, is going to be on the screen for a maximum of, what did I say? Not even 5 seconds. I mean, it's going to fade up and in, and then, so it's like fade up, boom. It's going to be that quick, right? How much time do we have here? I mean, come on. It's... There we see it.
My name is Asher. They call me...
So we're actually talking about... Oh my gosh. We're talking about 2 seconds. I'm not even joking. It's about 2 seconds that we're actually going to see the smoke. Okay? So probably, I'll go way out on a limb here and say that if I duplicate this layer and offset this one, like so, come on, offset I said. Alright, if you're going to be stupid, I'll just do it this way. Okay, alright, and then I'm going to kind of turn the transparency up or the opacity down, depending how you want to look at it, and let's just see. Ta-da! Look at that. Cake, baby. The only problem is, okay, so now this is an interesting problem. I'm gonna show you guys the secret to. So you see what's going on is we've got this transparency baked into the smoke, but then because of the transparency, once it doubles, all of a sudden we're seeing this density increase, right? Okay, here's how we fix that. Pretty easy, actually. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bake the smoke down into itself. Sorry, I just made a mistake. Undo. I want to take the copy of the smoke, bake it down into the smoke layer. So Control E. And now we're going to put the smoke in a group. File, save. You want to save your work frequently, people. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to add a transform mask to the smoke. All right? And then we hit the A key, but what we're going to do is let's do perspective. Look at that. Will it work? I don't know. I don't know. I think it might, though. Let's just give that a crack. All right? File, save. All right. Sorry, 2 seconds of smoke. Regenerating the cache. Krita's really got to start thinking. Okay, now that smoke seems to be progressing skyward pretty quickly. let's take a look at what we're doing here, people. All right, so okay, so here's what we're gonna do. It looks fine. We probably could do this one of two ways. What I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate the smoke layer and turn that one off just so I've got a safety backup. Now the duplicate, I'm going to take the transform mask off. I don't need it. For this one, I'm going to flatten the layer. Okay, so now it'll take a minute, by the way. Now it's going to bake the deformation into the smoke. Then what we're going to do is apply a mask so that when the smoke moves towards the sky, it also goes transparent. Okay. Now I don't think Krita is done. Yeah, it's waiting for the image operation to complete. So doing a transform mask on an image sequence can take some time. Okay, it looks like it completed, and now we want to make sure there's no wacky stuff going on. Okay, so now what we want to do is add a mask to this. So I'm going to add another layer, and I'm thinking what we could do is put it in erase mode, and the color really doesn't matter. So I'm going to hit the B key and use my airbrush, really big airbrush, and I'm just going to airbrush over this like that. Okay. So now, when it animates, everything is masked. All the smoke is masked by the erase layer, and so it just dissolves off into the sky. Isn't that sweet? That's pretty nice. Okay. So, not necessarily the most amazing looking smoke ever, but I think we're doing okay. Now the other thing I want to do is, since everything's looking good, I guess I want to take the group. Let me do this just to be safe. Okay, I'm going to call this erase. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bump this up and turn this one off and turn this one on, just to see if I actually like the original better, because I'm having a hunch here that I'm actually going to like the Yep, I don't like the distortion that much. So I'm going to go back to the original smoke. Definitely. So all that work for nothing, gone. Alright, now here in the group, this is going to be fairly performant in Krita because it's all being done with layers. There's no transform masks or anything like that. So Krita tends to be pretty pretty performant, meaning stable. You know, this type of stuff doesn't tend to crash the program. Okay, so one thing I'm wondering though is we've got erase and copy of some. Oh, I see what I did. Okay, cool. So now what we want to do is take the whole thing and tone it down a bit. Like that. And the question that I'm wondering is, should we actually, just for the living fun of it, add a blue tint to the smoke? I want to try it and see what happens. So basically what's going on here, this is going to be in overlay mode. So I'm going to alpha lock it to the smoke, put it in overlay mode, and it's also being it's under the erase layer, so it's also going to be made transparent. Now I'm not sure I'm digging the overlay thing. Since we are using alpha masking, we might as well just use normal mode, and I think that looks pretty good. So our smoke is done-ish. You know, with the caveat that I might change my mind and redo something. Okay, yeah, that's looking really good. Now, you know, again, to be fair, this is literally going to be on a screen. You know, all this painting is just for 1 second, basically, second and a half maybe. But come on. Okay, so that could loop okay. What if it needed to loop? Not so sure I'd buy it. I'm thinking I'm going to try something here just to see what happens. I'm going to take this sequence and just extend it out here and just see if it kind of sort of works. It does. I am going to do that. In fact, I am probably going to actually, I suspect, get rid of the beginning of it. Okay, so let's go from here. Yep. Okay, so basically the initial bit of smoke is a little egregious looking. Once it settles into the loop, it actually looks better. So therefore, we have to, as we like to say in the world of art, kill our darlings and get rid of the part that doesn't look as good and just live with it. Now we've got a pretty good seamless loop kind of thing going on for the most part. It looks pretty good. There's a little bit of a loop hiccup you can see if you look really closely, but I think we're in good shape. So let's save that. Okay, what else do we want to do here? I had mentioned this being in overlay mode, not normal mode. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna stick with that decision. Now this is in normal mode, and I'm gonna turn that up as well. I think we want the atmospheric perspective, but I reserve the right to change my mind as well. So, okay. I think that's it. I think that is it for tonight. I think I'm gonna stop there. How long have I been streaming? Hour and a half. Yep, I think that I've done pretty well. I need to get this rendered out. Maybe the one thing I would still consider is, what are we doing with the building? And I'm going to hit Control M and actually make it a filter mask, because I don't know for sure what I'm going to want to do, but I'm pretty sure we're going to want to make some tweaks. Yeah, look at that. Oh my gosh. Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, that's why I said what matters is the value more than the color, and then also I don't worry too much about the exact tonality, just because it's so easy to do a curves operation. Let's look at the blue layer vis-a-vis Varia's statement earlier. Okay, look at that. Wow. Dudes and dudettes. smoking a little bit of blue into the highlight kind of feels good, doesn't it? Kind of does. I'm liking what I'm seeing here. I am liking it. Okay, so you would think, though, if you were going to do that, that maybe the moon would have a little bit more of a, the moon in the sky would have a little bit more of a blue cast to it, or purple, or unfortunately for this, I'm moving on. I'm probably moving too fast right now because I'm not really being, I'm satisficing with something that I know I'm not going to keep later. Okay, so let's pause here, take a deep breath, and realize that the hue really needs to be changed on that. Yes, we really need to get that more to there. Now let's go back here and probably maybe ramp down the highlights a bit. So I think we'll go with that for the moment, but you can see massive difference, massive difference. I might have taken it too far, but for the moment, maybe we'll just kind of lighten it up a bit, but basically not too bad, not too shabby, people. So let's just see what the audience is going to see. Okay, so it's taking forever to regenerate the cache, and that's because all those smoke, when you duplicate layers in Krita, it's not referencing them. It has to actually make copies of all those, every single one of those cells. So that's one of the disadvantages of Krita, for sure. You know, and I'm kind of seeing some blurry fuzziness in the building that I think could maybe be improved too now that I've cranked up the contrast. But not too shabby, not too shabby. Let's do this. Well, and plus remember, this is a bigger than HD scene as well. So, but what I was kind of getting at here is that, is this the moon? Yeah, that's the moon. Okay, so let's take the moon and try a couple things. The easiest solution would be to actually just turn the opacity down. Okay. You know, I would say yes and no. Let's put the moon in a group, and let's try this a couple different ways. But I'm thinking what we could do is add another layer and do the same thing we did before. Just go like that, and kind of play out from there with a little bit of a more less aqua blue. Okay, and then let's just ease it in. You know, it's like doing EQ on music. You know, you want to just turn it down, dial it in where you think it's about right, turn it off and back on so you get the instant contrast. Okay, so I'm feeling like the moon would be peeking through pretty strong here, and maybe something like something like that would be happening. Would be the haps. I don't know, that looks pretty good. Almost full brightness. So, file, save. So, there may be some tweaks to the, might be some tweaks to the background. I can see some slight room for improvement. Slight room for improvement. I feel like maybe I took this a little too far. Yes. Okay, that helped a lot, actually. That helped a lot. Alright, the hue adjustment is probably okay still. Yeah, definitely. Just get a little bit more on the blue side. I love the curves tool in Krita because it allows you to tweak everything. The alpha, the hue, saturation, the lightness, the RGB values, the whole deal. the whole deal, people. Okay, so if anybody has any last minute questions, shout them out ASAP. There's a 17-second delay, so I'll wait about half a minute to see if anybody does have any stuff. Otherwise, I will happily say it's been a good day's work. Asher's looking good. The building's looking good. I don't know why the building just disappeared. Everything appears to have just disappeared just now. Pretty freaky. Pretty freaky. Maybe it'd be a good time to save our work. And music feels pretty good. Okay. Everybody is in relative stasis lock. So with that, I will say good night, people. And as